My family told me my art was a worthless fantasy, that I had no future. Then, a single anonymous letter arrived, offering me everything I'd ever dreamed of, but only if I was willing to leave my old life, and them, behind forever. The clinking of silverware was the only percussion to the symphony of my failure. Each scrape of my mother's fork against her plate felt like a judgment. Across the table, my older brother, Mark, the golden child, was recounting his latest triumph at the university's business school, some case competition he'd won, securing a prestigious summer internship. My father nodded along, his face a mask of paternal pride, the kind of expression I hadn't seen directed at me in years. I just stared down at my plate, pushing cold mashed potatoes into a sad, lumpy mountain. "And what about you, Alex?" My father's voice cut through my thoughts, sharp as glass. "Still painting?" He said the word painting, the way one might say, collecting infectious diseases. I flinched. "I finished a new piece today, actually. It's a cityscape. I was trying a new technique with the palette knife." "Another masterpiece, I see," my mother chimed in, her smile thin and brittle. "Are we going to hang this one in the garage, too? We're running out of wall space next to the lawnmower." Mark chuckled, a low, condescending sound. "Come on, Mom. Give Alex a break. Maybe someone will buy one for $20 at a flea market someday. That's almost a full tank of gas." The hot flush of shame crept up my neck. I was 19. While Mark was mapping out his future on a corporate ladder, I was mixing shades of ultramarine and burnt sienna in my cramped bedroom, chasing a dream they had long since declared dead on arrival. They saw my canvases not as art, but as evidence of my refusal to grow up, to be practical, to be more like Mark. My father sighed, placing his knife and fork down with a definitive clatter. The meal was over. The verdict was in. "Son," he started, and I braced myself. "We love you. You know that. But this hobby has to stop. You're not a child anymore. You have no job. You dropped out of community college after one semester, and you spend your days making messes that don't pay bills. Mark has an internship that pays more per hour than you've made in your entire life." He leaned forward, his eyes boring into me. "You have no future, Alex. Not like this. We're not going to support this fantasy forever." "You have no future." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. There was no point. I just mumbled an excuse and fled the dining room, their disappointed gazes burning holes in my back. I locked myself in my room, my sanctuary. The sweet, sharp scent of turpentine and oil paint filled my lungs, a smell they called toxic fumes, but which I called home. Canvases were stacked against every wall, some finished, some abandoned. My easel stood in the center, holding the cityscape I'd been so proud of just a few hours ago. Now it just looked childish, pathetic. My father's words echoed in my head. No future, no future, no future. Maybe they were right. I collapsed onto my bed, burying my face in my pillow to muffle the frustrated sob that escaped my lips. What was I doing? I was a joke, a cliché, the starving artist without the talent to even justify the starving. I made a decision, a cold, hard knot forming in my stomach. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I would pack up my paints. I'd look for a job stocking shelves or flipping burgers. I would kill the dream before it completely ruined my life. The next afternoon, as I was staring at a stack of empty cardboard boxes, my mother knocked on my door. "There's some mail for you," she said, her voice flat. She slid an envelope under the door. Probably another rejection letter from some local art show I'd forgotten I'd even entered. I left it on the floor, a final nail in the coffin of my artistic aspirations. It wasn't until hours later, as I was wrapping my brushes in newspaper, that I even bothered to pick it up. It wasn't a standard business envelope. It was heavy, made of thick, creamy cardstock that felt expensive to the touch. There was no return address, just an elegant embossed seal on the back, a stylized letter V intertwined with a laurel wreath. I'd never seen anything like it. My name and address were written on the front in exquisite flowing calligraphy. Curiosity piqued. I carefully broke the wax seal. Inside was a single sheet of matching paper with text printed in a simple classic font. Dear Mr. Alexander Vance, the Viridian Foundation has been observing your work with great interest. Your portfolio, which we discovered through your modest online gallery, displays a raw, undeniable talent and a unique perspective that we believe is worthy of cultivation. We find the emotional depth in pieces such as Dusk on Elm Street and Reflection in a Puddle to be truly exceptional for an artist of any age, let alone one of your own. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This had to be a prank. Mark must have put someone up to this, a cruel, elaborate joke to twist the knife. I kept reading, my hands beginning to shake. It is the mission of the Viridian Foundation to identify and sponsor singular talents before the world has a chance to extinguish their flame. To that end, we would like to formally offer you the Viridian Endowment for Emerging Artists. The endowment includes full tuition and fees for a 4-year Bachelor of Fine Arts program at the prestigious Northwood Academy of Art, a complete professional-grade art supply stipend, replenished quarterly, a private furnished apartment within walking distance of the campus for the duration of your studies, and finally, a monthly living stipend of $5,000 to ensure you can focus entirely on your craft without financial burden. I read the paragraph again and again. $5,000 a month? Northwood Academy? It was the school I dreamed of, the one whose tuition was so astronomical I never even dared to fill out an application. An apartment? A prank. It had to be a prank. But the paper felt so real. The ink was so crisp. At the bottom of the letter was a phone number and the name of a contact person, a Mr. Alistair Finch, with instructions to call within 48 hours to accept the offer. I stumbled out of my room, the letter clutched in my trembling hand, my mind a whirlwind of disbelief and a tiny, dangerous spark of hope. My family was in the living room, watching TV. My father was reading the paper, my mother was knitting, and Mark was scrolling on his phone. They looked up as I entered, their expressions ranging from annoyed to indifferent. "What is it now, Alex?" my father asked, not even lowering his newspaper. My voice was barely a whisper. I got a letter." "If it's the electric bill, it's your turn to pay half," Mark sniped without looking up. "No," I said, my voice growing stronger, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. "It's an offer, a sponsorship." My mother let out a tired sigh. "Oh, Alex, did you fall for one of those online scams? You can't pay to have your art put in a fake gallery in Paris." "It's not a scam," I insisted, stepping into the middle of the room. "It's from something called the Viridian Foundation. They're offering to pay for everything." My father finally lowered his paper, a deep frown on his face. "Alex, that's enough. We're not interested in your fantasies." Tears of frustration pricked my eyes. "It's real!" I shouted, my voice cracking. I held up the letter. "They're offering me a full scholarship to Northwood Academy. They're giving me an apartment and art supplies and a $5,000 a month stipend." The room went completely silent. Mark finally looked up from his phone, a smirk playing on his lips. My mother just stared at me with pity. But it was my father's reaction that stopped my breath. He slowly stood up, a dark look in his eyes. He walked towards me, his hand outstretched. "Let me see that," he commanded, his voice a low growl. He snatched the letter from my hand. His eyes, cold and disbelieving, scanned the page. He read it once. Then he read it again. The color drained from his face. The scorn, the anger, the disappointment that usually clouded his features when he looked at me, all of it vanished. It was replaced by a wide-eyed, slack-jawed shock. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the thick paper, and as he looked up from the letter to stare at me, his expression shifted into something I had never, ever seen on his face before. It wasn't pride. It wasn't happiness. It was a raw, calculating look of pure, unadulterated greed. "Let me see that," he commanded again, his voice now laced with a strange, breathless urgency. He smoothed the letter out on the coffee table, as if it were a sacred text. My mother and Mark crowded around him, their heads bent together, reading the words that had, in the span of 30 seconds, completely rewired my family's reality. 5,000 a month? Mark whispered, his usual arrogance replaced by stunned awe. He did the math in his head, his eyes widening. That's 60,000 a year, tax-free probably, just to live. My mother reached out and touched my arm. Her hand, which usually felt stiff and distant, was suddenly soft, almost pleading. "Alex, honey," she cooed, a sickly sweet smile spreading across her face. "We always knew you had this incredible talent. We were just pushing you to be your best self. It was tough love, you see." The whiplash was staggering. Just last night, this was a hobby, a mess, a one-way ticket to a futureless existence. Now it was an incredible talent. My father stood up straight, the letter still in his hand, and looked at me. The greed in his eyes had now morphed into a look of intense, strategic planning. He was no longer looking at his failure of a son. He was looking at an asset, a winning lottery ticket he just happened to find in his house. "All right," he said, his voice booming with a newfound authority, as if he were a CEO addressing his board. "First things first, we need to handle this properly. I'll call this Mr. Finch myself tomorrow morning. We'll need to discuss the terms, the tax implications. This can't be handled by a 19-year-old. We'll set up a joint account for the stipend, for transparency." "A new car would really help me get to my internship, you know," Mark chimed in, already spending my money. "Something reliable, safe." "And the roof needs repairs, dear," my mother added, looking at my father. This could be the answer to our prayers. A cold fury, unlike anything I had ever felt, began to build in my chest. They weren't happy for me. They were happy for themselves. They saw my dream coming true and immediately thought of how to carve it up and sell it for parts. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it cut through their vulture-like planning like a razor. They all stopped and stared at me. "What did you say?" my father asked, his brow furrowing. "No," I repeated louder this time, my voice shaking but firm. "You're not calling anyone, I'm calling. It's my name on the letter, and the stipend is for me. It's a living stipend so I can focus on my art, not for a new car or a new roof." My father's face darkened. The mask of the proud parent slipped, revealing the familiar sneer of the disappointed one. "Don't be naive, Alexander. This is a significant amount of money. It's a family matter now. We have supported you, housed you, fed you while you chased this thing. It's time you paid your dues." "Paid my dues?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You told me I had no future. You were ready to throw my paints in the trash yesterday." "That's enough," he roared, taking a step towards me. "You will show some respect. This money, this opportunity, it happened under my roof. That makes it my business." I couldn't stand to be in that room for another second. I snatched the letter off the coffee table before he could react and fled back to my bedroom, slamming the door and locking it behind me. I could hear him shouting my name, his heavy fist banging against the wood. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs. They were going to ruin this. They were going to devour this beautiful, impossible thing before it even had a chance to begin. My eyes fell on the phone number at the bottom of the letter. I had to know if it was real. I had to secure it before they could get their claws into it. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number. It rang only once before a man answered, his voice impossibly calm and cultured, with a faint British accent. "Viridian Foundation, Mr. Finch speaking." Hello?" I stammered. "My name is Alexander Vance. I received a letter." "Ah, Mr. Vance, we've been expecting your call," the voice said smoothly, without a hint of surprise. "I trust the offer is to your liking." It's real?" I whispered, sinking onto the edge of my bed. Quite real, I assure you. The Viridian Foundation does not engage in frivolity. We have the highest confidence in your potential. Do you accept the endowment? My father was still shouting on the other side of the door. Alexander, open this door right now. We need to talk about this as a family. Tears welled in my eyes. The choice was so stark. A future I never thought possible, or the suffocating cage of my family's expectations and greed. Yes, I said into the phone, my voice thick with emotion. Yes, I accept. 1,000 times yes. Excellent, Mr. Finch said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. Your decisiveness is a commendable trait. Now, there are a few logistical details to cover. Your tuition and initial stipends have already been processed. Your apartment is prepared. We've arranged for your transport and relocation. Transport? I asked, my mind racing. When? A car will be arriving to pick you up. Tomorrow morning. At 8 o'clock sharp, he said matter-of-factly. You should pack your portfolio, any essential art supplies we cannot easily replace, and your personal effects. Everything else will be provided for you. Tomorrow morning. It was so fast. I felt a dizzying sense of vertigo. Okay, I can do that, I said, my voice barely audible. Good, Mr. Finch replied. Now, there is one final matter, Mr. Vance. A stipulation that is absolutely critical to the spirit of the endowment, and it is entirely non-negotiable. I held my breath. Of course, there was a catch. The purpose of this endowment is to free a singular talent from all worldly distractions so that their art may flourish unimpeded. To that end, for the first year of your sponsorship, you are forbidden from having any contact with your family. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. No contact with my family? I repeated, my voice a hollow echo of his. My father's angry shouts outside my door suddenly seemed distant, like a storm receding over the horizon. For a whole year? That is correct, Mr. Vance. Alistair Finch's voice remained perfectly level, betraying no emotion. No phone calls, no letters, no emails, no visits. Complete and total separation. We believe that an artist's environment is paramount to their development. A sterile environment, free from prior influences and negative pressures, allows for the purest form of creation. The Foundation's investment is in you and you alone. We must protect that investment. Negative pressures. He had no idea, or maybe he did. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Had they just looked at my art online, or had they looked into my life? Was this a standard clause, or was it tailored for me? The banging on my door had finally stopped. I could hear my parents' muffled voices in the hallway, probably strategizing, plotting their next move, how to best leverage their newfound asset, me. Is that going to be a problem, Mr. Vance? Mr. Finch asked, his calm tone demanding an answer. A problem? A year ago, the thought of being cut off from my family would have terrified me. But now? After the scene in the living room, after seeing the naked avarice in their eyes, it didn't sound like a punishment. It sounded like a lifeline. It sounded like freedom. My father's words, "You have no future," echoed in my mind, but this time they were different. He was right. With them, I had no future. Without them, maybe I did. No, I said, a wave of clarity washing over me. It's not a problem. Very good, he replied, and I could almost hear the smile in his voice. Then everything is settled. The driver will be there at 8. He will have your initial paperwork and the keys to your new apartment. Welcome to the Viridian Foundation, Alexander. We have very high hopes for you. The line went dead. I sat on my bed in stunned silence, the phone still pressed to my ear. The world had tilted on its axis. In the span of an hour, I had gone from a worthless dreamer to a sponsored artist, from a son to an investment. And I had a choice to make with a deadline of less than 12 hours. I spent the next few hours in a feverish haze. I pulled out my old duffel bags and started packing. My portfolio was first. Each canvas, each sketch, felt like a piece of my soul I was rescuing from a burning building. Then came my paints, my worn-out brushes, the palette knives stained with 1,000 colors. The rest was easy. A few changes of clothes, a handful of books. I didn't have much else that truly felt like mine. Everything else in the room, the bed, the desk, the lamp, felt like it belonged to them, part of the cage they had built for me. At some point, my mother slid a note under the door. "Alex, please come out. Your father is sorry," he yelled. "We're just excited for you. Let's talk about your amazing future." Her handwriting was neat and careful, but the words felt slimy, manipulative. My amazing future was now our amazing future. I crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash. I didn't sleep a wink. I just sat by the window, watching the suburban streetlights cast long shadows, waiting for the sun to rise. I was terrified. I was exhilarated. Every creak of the floorboards in the hallway made me jump, expecting my father to try and break down the door, but he didn't. They were giving me space, trying a new tactic. The quiet was almost more unnerving than the shouting. At 7:45 a.m., I saw it. A sleek black town car, the kind you see in movies, pulled up silently to the curb in front of my house. It was so out of place on our street of minivans and aging sedans that it might as well have been a spaceship. This was real. It was happening. I took a deep breath, grabbed my bags and the heavy portfolio case, and unlocked my bedroom door. The house was quiet. I crept down the hallway, my sneakers silent on the carpet. The living room was empty. They must have been in their bedroom, waiting for me to emerge so they could ambush me with their carefully rehearsed speeches about family and financial planning. I didn't give them the chance. I walked straight to the front door, my hand closing around the cool brass of the doorknob. This was it, the point of no return. I opened the door. The early morning air was cool and crisp. The driver, a tall man in a dark suit and sunglasses, was already out of the car, holding the rear door open for me. He nodded once, a silent, professional greeting. As I stepped onto the porch, a voice behind me made me freeze. "And just where do you think you're going?" I turned. My father stood in the entryway, dressed for work, his arms crossed over his chest. My mother and Mark were right behind him, their faces a mixture of confusion and dawning horror as they saw the packed bags and the waiting car. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady. "Leaving." "Don't be ridiculous," my father scoffed. "We're going to call that foundation today, together. We're going to work this out." "There's nothing to work out," I replied, taking another step towards the car. "I've already accepted. I leave today." "You did what?" my mother shrieked, her hand flying to her mouth. "Without us?" "You're not going anywhere, Alex," my father said, his voice dangerously low as he started walking towards me. "You are 19 years old. You are still my son, and you live under my roof. You will not make a decision like this without my approval." The driver, impassive behind his sunglasses, simply watched us, his posture relaxed but ready. He didn't seem concerned. I looked my father in the eye. All the years of fear, of intimidation, of feeling small and worthless, they just evaporated. "You told me I had no future here," I said calmly. "Turns out you were right, so I'm going to find one somewhere else." I turned my back on him and walked down the path. I heard him curse behind me, heard his footsteps quicken on the concrete. I braced myself for a hand to grab my shoulder, to spin me around, but it never came. I reached the car and the driver took my bags, placing them in the trunk. I slid into the plush leather of the back seat. The door closed with a soft, satisfying thud, sealing me off from the world I knew. Through the tinted window, I saw my family standing on the lawn, frozen in a tableau of disbelief. My father's face was a storm cloud of fury. My mother looked like she was about to cry. Mark just looked cheated. The car pulled away from the curb smoothly, silently. I didn't look back. We drove through my town, past the parks and schools and shops I had known my whole life. Each block we passed felt like a chain breaking. After about 20 minutes on the highway, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. "You are a selfish bastard. Dad is losing his mind. You better not forget who raised you when you're rolling in cash." I deleted it without replying. Then a text from my mother. "Alex, please call us. We're worried sick. We love you." I deleted that one too. I was finally starting to breathe, to believe this was real, when the driver spoke for the first time. His voice, transmitted through a small speaker, was as anonymous as his appearance. "Mr. Vance, we will be arriving at the airfield in approximately 10 minutes. "Airfield?" I asked, confused. "I thought Northwood Academy was only a few states away. Are we flying?" The driver didn't answer immediately. He just kept his eyes on the road. The car took an exit that I knew led to a small private airport used by corporate jets. "Northwood Academy is your first destination." "Yes," the driver said, his voice perfectly even. "But the Viridian Foundation has interests all over the world. Your benefactor believes that true artistic inspiration requires a broad perspective." He paused, then met my eyes in the rearview mirror. "First, you're going to Paris." Paris. The word hung in the silent, air-conditioned space of the car, shimmering with a kind of impossible magic. I dreamed of Paris. I'd spent hours of my life staring at pictures of the Louvre, of Montmartre, of the light hitting the Seine at sunset, trying to capture a fraction of that beauty on my cheap canvases. Now, it wasn't a dream or a picture. It was a destination. "Paris?" I managed to choke out, my mind struggling to process the information. Why am I going to Paris?" "Your benefactor believes a month of immersion is in order before you begin your formal studies at Northwood," the driver explained, his tone as matter-of-fact as if he were announcing the next turn. "You will be provided with a studio apartment in the 6th arrondissement, a private tutor for conversational French, and unlimited access to every museum and gallery in the city. Consider it your orientation." My head was spinning. An apartment in Paris. Unlimited museum access. This wasn't just a scholarship, it was a fantasy. It felt like I had stepped out of my dreary grayscale life and into a vibrant Technicolor movie. The scale of this sponsorship was so far beyond anything I could have comprehended. It was lavish, extravagant, and more than a little intimidating. Who were these people? What kind of foundation throws this kind of money at an unknown 19-year-old from the suburbs? The letter V on the seal of the envelope flashed in my mind. Viridian. The name sounded old, powerful. We arrived at the private airfield. There were no lines, no security checkpoints, no bustling crowds. The town car drove directly onto the tarmac and pulled up beside a small, sleek private jet. The door to the plane was open, a staircase extending down to the ground. A woman in a sharp, tailored suit stood at the bottom, a tablet in her hand. The driver opened my door. "Ms. Moreau will see to you from here, Mr. Vance." I got out of the car, my duffel bag slung over my shoulder and my portfolio case in my hand, feeling utterly out of place. Ms. Moreau gave me a polite, professional smile. "Alexander Vance, I'm Genevieve Moreau, Mr. Finch's associate. Welcome. We have a brief flight ahead of us. Please come aboard." The interior of the jet was like a miniature luxury hotel suite, with cream leather seats, polished wood paneling, and a small, well-stocked galley. It was just the two of us. As I settled into a seat that was more comfortable than my bed at home, Ms. Moreau handed me a folder. "This contains your itinerary for Paris, the address and keys for your apartment, your credentials for museum access, and a debit card," she explained. "The card is linked to your stipend account, which has already received its first deposit. Mr. Finch also asked me to give you this." She handed me a slim black box. I opened it. Inside was a brand new smartphone, the latest model. "Your old phone is a security risk," she said, anticipating my question. "It can be tracked, and your family could attempt to contact you, which, as you know, is against the terms of the endowment. This device is secure and untraceable. All necessary contacts have been pre-programmed. Mr. Finch's number is there, as is mine, and your tutor's in Paris. Please power down your old device and leave it with me." The request was chilling in its efficiency. They weren't just giving me a new life. They were methodically erasing the old one. I looked at the phone in my hand, the one filled with angry texts from my family, with years of photos, with a life I was now desperate to escape. Without a moment's hesitation, I powered it down and handed it to her. She dropped it into a silver foil-lined bag and sealed it shut. It was done. I was officially a ghost. The flight was surreal. We ascended into a brilliant blue sky, leaving my old life, my angry father, my manipulative mother, my jealous brother, literally thousands of feet below. Ms. Moreau was courteous but distant, answering my questions with practiced precision but volunteering no extra information. I learned nothing more about the Viridian Foundation or my mysterious, unnamed benefactor. It was clear that I was on a need-to-know basis, and for now, all I needed to know was how to find my apartment in Paris. Landing at a private airport outside the city was just as seamless. Another black car was waiting. We drove into Paris, the iconic skyline slowly emerging through the window. The Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe. They were real. They weren't just pictures. I felt a lump form in my throat. The car wound through the charming, narrow streets of the Saint-Germain-des-Prés neighborhood until it stopped in front of a beautiful, classic Haussmann-style building with wrought iron balconies. "Here we are," Ms. Moreau announced. "Your apartment is on the 5th floor. The lift is just inside. I trust you can manage from here." "Yes, thank you," I said, still dazed. "Your tutor, Madame Dubois, will contact you on your new phone tomorrow to arrange your first lesson. Enjoy your stay, Mr. Vance, and do try to be productive. Mr. Finch will expect a progress report." With a final polite nod, she got back in the car, and it drove away, leaving me standing on a Parisian sidewalk with a set of keys and a brand new life. The apartment was perfect. It wasn't large, but it was beautiful, with high ceilings, a marble fireplace, and a small balcony that overlooked the bustling street below. In the main room, where a bed would normally be, there was a large, professional-grade easel, a massive drawing table, and stacks of fresh, blank canvases. The shelves were filled with art supplies, every color of oil, acrylic, and watercolor paint imaginable, brushes of every size, pencils, charcoals. It was a king's ransom. My bedroom was smaller, a cozy alcove with a comfortable bed and a window that opened onto a quiet inner courtyard. The first week was a blur of overwhelming beauty. I walked for miles every day, my sketchbook always in hand. I went to the Louvre and stood in front of the masterpieces I had only ever seen in books, my eyes filled with tears. I visited the Musée d'Orsay, the Centre Pompidou, the Musée Rodin. I ate croissants from corner bakeries and drank coffee at sidewalk cafes, sketching the people who walked by. I was deliriously, unbelievably happy, and I was completely, utterly alone. It was the most wonderful feeling in the world. I painted with a ferocity I hadn't felt in years. The city seeped into my work. My colors grew bolder, my brush strokes more confident. I felt alive, unshackled. The stipulation of no contact, which had at first seemed like a strange addendum, now felt like the entire point of the exercise. Without the constant weight of my family's disapproval, I was free to become the artist I was always meant to be. About 3 weeks into my stay, I was working on a large canvas, a painting of the view from my balcony at twilight. The city lights were just beginning to sparkle, and I was trying to capture the specific shade of deep indigo the sky turned just before darkness fell. My new phone buzzed on the table. It was an unknown number, a video call. My heart lurched. No one had this number except the foundation. I answered it, my hand trembling slightly. The face that appeared on the screen was that of an old man. He was sitting in what looked like a library, with dark wood shelves filled with leather-bound books behind him. He had kind, intelligent eyes, framed by a web of wrinkles, and a neatly trimmed white beard. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored tweed jacket. He smiled warmly at me. "Alexander," he said, his voice a rich, gentle baritone. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you, even if only virtually. My name is Alistair Finch." The name sent a jolt through me. "Mr. Finch?" I stammered, wiping a smear of cobalt blue from my hand onto my jeans. I thought... The man on the phone?" Alistair Finch chuckled, a sound like rustling old paper. "Ah, yes, my associate has a rather formal demeanor. I am the man behind the curtain, so to speak. I lead the Viridian Foundation, and more importantly, Alexander, I am your benefactor." My benefactor, the mysterious sponsor. I sank into the chair by my easel, my mind reeling. I was face to face with the man who had single-handedly plucked me from obscurity and misery and placed me in a Parisian dream. "Sir," I began, my voice filled with a reverence I couldn't hide, "I don't know what to say. Thank you isn't a big enough word. There is no need for thanks," he said, his gaze drifting to the canvas visible over my shoulder. "Is that your current work in progress? The Twilight over Saint-Germain? Splendid. Your use of color is even more confident than in your earlier pieces. Paris agrees with you." His knowledge was unnerving and flattering all at once. "It's incredible here. Everything is." "Good. That is the point," he said, his expression turning more serious. "Alexander, I am calling you for a reason beyond simple introductions. It has come to my attention that your family has been making efforts to circumvent the terms of your endowment." A knot of ice formed in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "They have been persistent," Mr. Finch said delicately. "They hired a private investigator to find you. When that failed, your father attempted to contact our legal department, demanding financial oversight of what he termed his son's earnings. He seems to be under the impression that your talent is a commodity he is entitled to manage." The shame was immediate and hot, a phantom echo of my old life. "I'm so sorry, sir. I had no idea. I haven't spoken to them." "I know you haven't," he reassured me. "You have upheld your end of the agreement perfectly, but their actions have forced my hand. I had intended to wait until you were more settled at Northwood, but I believe it is time you understood the full story of why we chose you and why the clause of non-contact was so absolute." He leaned forward slightly, his kind eyes holding mine through the screen. "Alexander, the Viridian Foundation doesn't just find artists. Our mission is more specific. We find artists who are in danger of being extinguished by their circumstances. I started this foundation 50 years ago for a very personal reason. Like you, I was a young painter, and like you, my family saw my passion not as a gift, but as a failure of character, a financial liability." He paused, a shadow of old pain passing over his features. "They gave me an ultimatum. Give up the hobby and join the family business, or be cut off entirely. I was young and I folded. I gave up my art. I spent 40 years in a world of ledgers and contracts, building a fortune I never wanted. By the time I was free to paint again, the spark was gone. The world had extinguished my flame. I created this foundation to ensure that what happened to me would never happen to another artist of true potential." The story resonated so deeply it made my bones ache. He wasn't just a rich benefactor, he was me, from a different timeline. "My father," I started, my voice thick. "He's an accountant. He always wanted me to be like him, like my brother." "I know," Mr. Finch said softly. "We do a thorough investigation of all our candidates. Your talent was the primary reason we chose you, Alexander. But your circumstances, they made you the perfect candidate. We saw a rare flower being choked by weeds. We simply decided to do some gardening." He then told me about my family's attempts to portray themselves as my supportive patrons to the foundation's lawyers, even sending Mark's college transcripts as evidence of the family's commitment to excellence. The audacity was breathtaking. "So what happens now?" I asked, a new fear creeping in. "Will they ruin this for me?" "Absolutely not," Mr. Finch said with steel in his voice. "This is merely a crossroads. Our legal team is more than capable of handling your father's inquiries, but the choice, ultimately, must be yours. The first year of non-contact is mandatory. After that, the choice to re-engage with your family is left to the artist. I am telling you this now so you can prepare, so you can understand that you hold the power, not them. Your future is in your hands, not theirs. Now show me that painting again. Let's talk about how you're capturing the light on those chimney pots." That conversation changed everything. It wasn't just about the money or the opportunity anymore. It was about a shared history, a legacy. Alistair Finch became more than a benefactor. He became a mentor. We spoke every week. He critiqued my work, pushed me to experiment, and shared stories of his own abbreviated life as an artist. My month in Paris ended, and I moved into my apartment near Northwood Academy. The school was everything I had dreamed of. I was surrounded by people who spoke my language, who saw the world in color and form. I wasn't the weird one anymore. I was home. The year passed in a whirlwind of creation and discovery. I excelled in my classes. I had my first piece accepted into a prestigious student exhibition. I made friends. I lived. For the first time in my life, I felt the ground solid beneath my feet. I never heard a word from my family. The foundation was a perfect shield. On the 1-year anniversary of my departure, I received an email from Miss Moreau. It simply said, "The probationary period has concluded. The terms of your endowment are now permanent. The choice regarding familial contact is now at your discretion. Congratulations, Mr. Vance." I stared at the email for a long time. My old life felt like a story I'd read about someone else. Did I want to open that book again? Curiosity and perhaps a misguided sense of duty gnawed at me. I decided to make one call. I chose my mother. She picked up on the first ring. "Hello? Mom, it's Alex." There was a sharp intake of breath, followed by a torrent of tearful words. How worried they'd been, how they missed me, how proud they were. It sounded rehearsed. "Your father and I want to see you," she said, her voice turning eager. "We want to come visit, see your school, your apartment. Mark, too. He's been dying to talk to you." "Why?" I asked, my voice calm and even. "Well, to see you, of course. And, well, your father had some ideas about investing your stipend, helping you manage your career. He's an accountant, you know. He could be your business manager. It could be a family enterprise." There it was, a family enterprise. In a year, nothing had changed. They still didn't see me. They saw a walking, talking bank account. They saw a way to profit from the dream they had tried so hard to kill. I looked around my studio apartment. Canvases filled with bold, vibrant cityscapes and portraits lined the walls. Sunlight streamed through the large window, illuminating the beautiful, creative mess. My portfolio for a gallery submission sat on my desk. My life was full, my future bright. It was a future I had built, with the help of a man who understood what it meant to have that chance stolen. "No, Mom," I said, and the finality in my own voice surprised me. It was a quiet, clean severance. "That won't be necessary. I'm being managed just fine." "But Alex, we're your family." "You told me I had no future," I interrupted, not with anger, but with a simple, profound clarity. "And you were right. I had no future with you. I have one now. I have to go." I hung up before she could reply. I blocked their numbers. I felt a pang of sadness for the family I wished I'd had, but it was overshadowed by an immense, soaring feeling of relief. "My name is Alexander Vance. I am a painter, and my future, for the first time in my life, was entirely my own." I picked up my brush, turned to my canvas, and began to paint.